Friday. Hey, is it Thursday again? Are we-
Oh,
Can you believe it? Another Thursday, inching closer to Halloween, and it's another Real Monsters. And I'm SK Barrett, your host, along with the lovely and talented Wes Hobrick.
hello, hello, hello. 1 week until Halloween.
How
On the
about
dot.
that? Yeah.
Man,
Holy
tell
cow!
you.
We have a guy tonight who most people probably have not heard of yet.
Yeah, unless you pay attention to some very specific news outlets, you probably don't know much about this guy.
Right.
Um, yeah, but he, I think, is going to have a pretty big effect on um, the history of serial murder on this continent and how it goes forward in studying these guys would be another big part of it. Um,
But first, this week in crime history.
yes, I actually have a few. The ones that I had from last week before we had to cancel,
Yeah.
just go through those real quick. I'll kind of read them while I'm reading the others that are more new. Let's see. 1019. Florida man charged with manslaughter after beating a peeping Tom to death. I
Yeah.
would.
Go ahead. What were you going to
I
say?
was. I was just thinking that one's kind of touchy. And if I were that guy, I think I would plead temporary insanity with that. And you know what? I
Could
bet you
be
I'd win.
crime of passion.
Yeah, exactly. I was driven temporarily insane when I saw a guy looking in the window as me and my girlfriend had sex.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I didn't know what I was doing was wrong. But
Well, yeah, and that's why he couldn't stop beating him.
exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see. Also, the 19th, the Washington state leader of the Atomwaffen division has his guns seized, but he is not arrested. Um, wasn't totally sure why on that, but the Atomwaffen division, they are a bit of a rising neo-Nazi group in this country. ProPublica, in fact, with Frontline on PBS, did a rather interesting documentary on them. It can be found for free online, but yeah, you might be seeing more with that. Who knows?
Did you
Uh,
say they're in Washington?
it was the Washington state leaders' guns that were seized.
Oh,
They aren't, that's not like their headquarters or anything. They're
okay.
pretty decentralized across most of the states, but yeah, apparently they didn't have anything to arrest the man on, though. So, I don't know.
But they could take his guns away without arresting him?
Yep,
Why?
scary for other reasons, too.
So why can they do that?
I'm wondering if they aren't starting with these laws that are allowing them to do it in other instances, the red flag laws. Perhaps it's an abuse of something like that. Um,
Hmm.
it's hard because that kind of shit is unconstitutional. But when they direct it at a guy like this, it does make it harder to have sympathy.
But this is exactly why you have to have sympathy.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree.
I
But
mean, he may be a total shitbag, but that doesn't mean you get to take his guns away just because of that. You got to have some real
exactly.
reason.
Oh, exactly. I try to remember that. I really do. Because I agree with you 100%. Um, and oh, yeah, we had this item too. An LA man gets 553 years for shooting
What?
a SWAT officer's helmet and non fatally wounding a canine.
Excuse me?
This guy had a bunch of other charges in the same incident, and he had a very long rap sheet. But yeah, 553 years for that. So,
What?
y- yeah, you don't know. Even the guys that we profile on here, you don't often see
No.
550 years.
No, no, you don't even, you almost never even see triple digits because it's
Yep.
ridiculous. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Exactly.
got a feeling the the attorneys are just, you know, stacking up their appeals and rubbing their
Yeah.
hands together.
Oh, probably, especially being California. But yeah, Cool Tactics says with that last item, that's Alex Jones all again. Yeah, I agree. It is a slippery slope too, like you said.
Yep,
Um, just like I said, we have to remember that fact that it's a slippery slope. And even if these guys are total shitheels, there has to be some due process before you do that, before you take away their guns. But oh yeah, the botched arrest of El Chapo's son leaves 8 dead in Mexico. So there's that.
we may very well have to go to war with Mexico against the cartels.
Yeah,
Because
we.
if you read about the details in this, the police were completely outgunned, the
Hmm.
and outmanned, and and they one of the ways they got the police to surrender is they went to the not well they I'm sorry, it was not a shootout with the police, it was a shootout against the army.
Yeah, yeah, the army and I think the federales too.
And the cartel went to the families of the soldiers and started killing the families
Oh yeah, and they're
to
vicious.
get them surrender.
Hmm.
Um, this is the Mexico's in a lot of trouble because of the cartels,
And the
and
infiltration, the scale of the infiltration into their government that they
absolutely,
did.
absolutely, and
Everybody's corrupt down there, it seems.
well, not everybody. It does seem like everybody, but it's enough.
Oh yeah. Oh,
It's enough,
absolutely.
and we might have to go after them ourselves.
Mm, I hope not, but maybe. See, we had a couple of these on here. One, the Cincinnati soccer coach, 107 counts of kiddie porn, many of which involved a 7-month-old victim.
What the fuck's wrong with people?
I know,
Well,
somebody
I
like
guess that's
that,
what the whole show's
man.
about.
Some of those are
But no,
unfathomable, man.
I don't. That shit that makes no sense to me.
Have you ever watched a Serbian film?
I have not.
You've heard of it though?
I have heard of it.
There is
Uh,
one scene in there that mimics what I just said with that 7-month-old.
mm,
That is one of the few movies I've ever seen that will take a bit of your soul with it when you watch it.
yeah, so I've heard, and not exactly excited about that prospect.
Yeah, I mean, although I will say, I think if you can watch it, you can watch anything. But uh, yeah, moving on to another one I had. This one, I don't know how many people out there listening are fans of HGTV, but one of their pilot stars, Christopher Dion, Dionne, from the show Family Flip, was convicted of molesting a 10-year-old girl.
Wow,
Yeah.
Jesus. There was also a story out of England where a 22-year-old young woman committed suicide after finding kiddie porn on her boyfriend's phone.
Yeah, I saw that. Actually, had that one in here too.
Oh,
It's
did you?
sad, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't.
it's horribly sad.
Obviously she had to have other things going wrong to take that kind of a step because
Yeah,
I mean, it's not her fault.
Yeah, or it was the trigger that exploded those other things. The straw that broke the camel's back for her.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure. I would need to read more of her story, but switching gears a bit to something funny, Florida man takes laxatives he believes are opiates. Yep, it's a shitty story. Rim
Jeez.
shot.
You know, when I was in Boy Scouts and we would go on campouts and you'd always pack some, besides the meals, you always wanted to take snacks along, candy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody was getting into the packs and stealing stuff. And um, so one of my buddies took a box of chiclets and replaced them with X-Lax, chewable X-Lax that looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
And guess what? We
Oh
found out
wow.
who it was.
Oh man. Dang. Uh, let's see. Oh, a Munchausen by proxy case. Mother gets jail time after her 3-year-old dies. Um, oh, here's another interesting one. The two suspects accused of killing NBA star Andrea Emmett in a botched robbery were arraigned on the 22nd. Another one that, man, this just, what's the world coming to? A 9-year-old boy arraigned up here by me, actually, Goodfield, Illinois, after starting a fire that kills 5 of his family members. 9 years old.
Whoa.
Man. Oh, yeah, and then E.T. found an attorney. Henry Thomas of E.T. got a DUI
Yeah.
on the 23rd.
It was
Man.
uh it was in Oregon, so just down the road from me. Um, Good chance it
Mhm.
wasn't alcohol. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well,
It was Oregon after all.
this is true. Let's see. Oh, 39 bodies found in a lorry in Essex, UK. A
And
lorry from Bulgaria.
Bulgaria, huh?
I wonder with that if it isn't something with human trafficking.
Trafficking, yeah.
Because that's the Brits' problem over there with their illegal immigration,
Yeah.
is from Eastern Europe
Yep.
in huge part. But we'll see with that. They filed murder charges today, so. Oh,
Against the
yeah, and
driver, wasn't it?
I think so. I would have to check the Essex police report again, but yeah, I believe it was the driver. Um, oh yeah, and did you see this? Rose McGowan is going after Harvey Weinstein in civil court for racketeering.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's a really smart move.
I do too. I think she definitely has a case there, looking at everything he did. It's a very novel way to go after him too. But oh yeah, we did have a couple funny ones here from last week too. Did you hear about the Iowa State student who was arrested for using a fake Hawaiian McLovin ID?
No, what?
You've seen Superbad, right?
Oh, yeah, it's been a while.
McLovin. Apparently, he had an ID that said McLovin. I should have gotten his mugshot from that because he had a huge smile for that. I probably would be too if it was just that I
Right?
got pinched for. But let's see, 35-year-old man walks 358 miles to have sex with a 14-year-old girl. Um, let's see, oh, this one was interesting. I didn't hear much more on it, but San Diego Padres pitcher Jacob Nix is arrested after drunkenly crawling through a doggy door in Arizona, and he's damn near shot by the homeowner. I
Well,
still haven't heard
even all of
why.
that's better than playing for the Padres.
Oh, this is true, man. Oh yeah, and then right over there in El Dorado Hills, California, a naked home intruder wearing only a bra and panties is arrested. Not sure what the end game was there either.
Mm.
But man,
Wow. People are weird.
they definitely are. And I think that is, yeah, that's all I have this week and last week.
Okay.
And Mr. Little.
Mr. Samuel Little. What the hell's the deal with this guy?
It is truly amazing just wrapping your mind around the scope of what this guy did. And so far, the number is at 93 that he's confessed to. And it is, I think, the last total I saw that they conclusively tied him to was 60 murders.
Well, even 60 would put him way near the top.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
And it,
some of the serial killers that we think of as being so terrible, their numbers aren't all that impressive anymore.
yeah. Oh,
Son,
yeah,
Son of
definitely.
Sam,
At
yeah.
6.
Bundy
Yeah.
was like 14.
BTK, Dennis Rader, had 10.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But
So just to put this into perspective, um, yeah, and this guy is linked to 60 and has confessed to over 90.
he has. And I found it telling the investigators who have been interviewing him have said that they see no reason to doubt what he's saying for the others. They just
Really?
don't have the conclusive evidence yet on those others. Um, but yeah,
So,
interestingly,
go
how
ahead.
this all started was a Texas Ranger had a inkling about this guy Samuel Little when he was picked up in California for 3 murders and sentenced to 3 life terms there around 2014. So basically what this guy says is, Ranger James Holland, I'm going to go to California, I'm going to sit down with this guy. I
Yeah.
think he might have done this murder in my state. Let's see what he says.
Okay.
So he gets there and he gets Little talking, and he ends up with about 700 hours of chats of confessions with this guy.
Jesus.
Yeah, to put that in perspective, that's about 48 days worth of confessions. Um,
So Little didn't mind talking. All you had to do was ask, huh?
yeah, oh, exactly. And do we have the pictures of the photos he would draw? I thought I
Yeah.
included a few of those in there
Yeah.
too.
I got those.
That was the other big thing that Holland noticed. In fact, Holland called Little a genius, and
In
that
what
was
in what sense?
in his level of recall of details,
Oh, okay.
um, and then just also how he stored memory. The way that I took it with that was he was meaning that he has an ideographic memory,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, which is pretty interesting. Just all the little things that he remembered and he told these guys. But yeah, he Holland got him talking, and then he started giving him art supplies and said, "Sam, I want you to draw these women as you remember them."
Oh, so that's where the drawings came
Yep.
from the ranger asking him.
Yeah. He's not a bad artist.
No, not bad at all.
He's got
By the
some
way,
skill with
portraits are
that.
some faces are some of the hardest things to draw
They really are.
and to get right.
Which that mugshot actually looks like it might be a computer one. But yeah, I mean, he's been drawing these and just sort of cranking them out for the Ranger as they need them. But yeah, with Holland, it's kind of interesting. They did a in-depth 48 hour, or not 48 hours, 60 minutes interview with him. And basically, what he does is his specialty is going around and trying to close these cold cases where they have very limited evidence,
Mm-hmm.
but they have somebody that they like for it.
Okay.
And that's the way it was with Little with a lot of these murders. Because, what he would do, his MO would be to drift from town to town. And during the day, how he would usually spend his time is going around and shoplifting shit from different stores and then taking it to the Skid Rows and the crack houses and, just the poor
Yeah.
down and out areas of a town,
Okay.
selling it, and then all the while being on the hunt for prostitutes, drug addicts, down and out dispossessed women.
Okay.
Um, and now he did say that he preferred African American women, which would be in keeping with
Yeah.
most of them. Not crossing racial lines, but his big thing also was just did he like their form, specifically the neck. He mentioned several times that he had a sexual attraction to the neck.
Well, that's unusual.
Yeah,
Well, at
it
least
is.
not common.
Yeah. Strangulation is common as a way to kill among these people. But yeah, being specific about saying, yeah, I'm really attracted to the neck is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how he would kill him. He would strangle him. And often he would, secrete, ejaculate onto the bodies or on the clothes.
Hmm.
And that was actually one way that the LAPD closed case people found him and went after him for those three that I mentioned earlier. Now, in terms of where he was
So
active,
he was not worried about leaving behind DNA at all.
oh no, not at all. Not when he's spending maybe 4 days in a town, and he knows he's going to leave there after he does that.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't worried at all. He killed over a total of 20 states.
And what was the time span?
That was about 1957 all the way
No,
to the early 2000s.
57?
57, with Little being born in 1940. But I mean, this guy, he's got the entire Southwest covered, and he's got the entire southern United States basically covered.
So that's 50 years.
Yep. First one in 57. Then he wasn't active for a while, and then in 1970 he starts killing more in earnest, I guess you could say.
Wow.
So, that's a huge time. But let's see, his most active area by far was LA, California. He killed 20 just there.
In California.
In LA.
Just in
Alone.
LA.
Yep.
And that didn't twig anybody's attention?
His MO, when you look at it, and his signature wasn't all that unusual. There's
Okay.
not really a whole lot of behavioral evidence to go off there if you're just investigating a strangling,
And
a strangling and
a
a
strangled
sexual assault.
prostitute, not enough to be distinctive. That's what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's not enough to differentiate him from, anything else there.
Wow.
So yeah, there was 20 in Los Angeles and about 25 of them in Miami. So he was very active in Florida too. But he also has murders connected to him in, let's see, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Maryland, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Nebraska, and Missouri.
Jesus.
Yeah. So basically the entire Southwest and the entire South. But yeah, he was born in Ohio in 1940, and he allegedly, he says his mother was a prostitute, but there's not really any evidence to back much of that up. And there's other people who say that he was actually born when she was in prison.
Hmm.
But again, no real proof of that. So at any rate, he ended up actually living with his grandmother in Ohio, around the Cleveland area.
You know, if he was raised by his grandma, and if grandma was not too keen on his mom and just called her a whore, just as a slur and not necessarily as a job description, he could have just grown up thinking that, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure, most definitely. Let's see. Oh yeah, and he was also. I found this interesting. When Little was in prison, is actually how he got started with this. He was a amateur boxer through much of that.
Oh, really?
Yep, with
And
one hell of a powerful punch too.
oh, right. That was demonstrated in one of his victims, right?
Yeah, I was just looking for. Oh, it was Little Rock, the one that he killed in North Little Rock. He punched her so hard in the stomach that it actually severed her spine.
Jesus.
So, yeah, man, yeah, with such force. I'm just. Yeah,
Big
he
guy.
called his mother a lady of the night. Was his exact words there. But as this is still developing in a lot of ways too, there's a lot of details that aren't totally clear yet
Right?
on Little. Even though he has been arrested over 100 times for various different things, but
M-
he only spent, it wasn't a whole lot of time. I was looking for the exact figure. I want to say before his murder arrest, it was only a couple years. Yeah, only 2 years was the amount of time he spent in prison.
But he was arrested 100 times,
Yep.
and he spent 2 years.
Yeah. Only 2 years before that murder conviction. But yeah, there was that murder in 57. There was a breaking and entering too that he got pinched for. Burglary, a bunch of other stuff. Possession of a crack pipe was a big one. Again, you see with him a lot of criminal versatility, not unlike a lot of the other guys. But most arrests here, they equal 0 jail time. And you can't help but wonder if they had done a different tact with that, if somebody might have lived, if they might have saved lives.
They certainly could have saved some, maybe not all, but some, just having them off the street, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Makes
Just
you wonder
wow.
if he would skip town and skip out of the state if he got too many arrests in an area.
I think that was a pretty big motivation for him a lot of the time early on there,
Yeah.
with quite a few different places. California being probably the most that would fit that bill. So it wasn't long after Ohio, living with his grandmother, he actually moved down to Florida. Was working as a grave digger and a ambulance attendant. And then from there, he drifted out to California. I was just looking for a few different examples of his recall here.
So he had this pretty perfect recall, and yet he did pretty crappy at school.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what exactly that would say.
You know, it could be that he could recall images, but not necessarily understand concepts. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like he could,
Yeah, that's true.
you know, just because you can recall, maybe he could recall even the text on a page, but that doesn't mean he understands what the text means.
Uh-huh. It's true. It's very true. But yeah, the ranger, when he was talking about Little's recall, said watching him, it was almost like you could see the pictures flashing real fast of the victims' faces in front of his eyes, and then he finally settles on one, and that's when he starts describing the detail
Hmm.
in very deep, very minute detail. Um, let's see a few quotes from him.
Yeah, yeah. Those images would be organized in a way. It'd be fascinating to know how he mentally organizes all those images and what it, because it could be that he has to go, through a mental filing cabinet to try and find the right one, type of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah, that's definitely how Ranger Holland described it. But yeah, there was one example of a New Orleans victim, 1982. Little says of her, she was pretty, light colored, honey brown skin. She was tall for a woman, beautiful shape, and friendly. They left a club in the city in his Lincoln, parked by a bayou. That's where he says, quote, "That's the only one that I ever killed by drowning."
Hmm.
His most recent plea, too, was actually back home in Ohio. 4 women, yeah, pleading guilty to first-degree murder. That's plus the 3 out there in California. Oh, that was 2013 when he was convicted there, not 2014.
Okay.
And then you had Ranger Hollins killing. The associated one was in Lubbock, Texas.
Oh, I've been there briefly.
Nice town. I liked it when I went through. It was a
So what if this guy's MO was so generic, what was it that got this Texas Rangers, brain twitching that it might be Little?
he was. I don't think he was the only one at the time, but he was definitely one of them who started noticing that, hey, they have this murderer out in California, and we're seeing clusters of murdered women wherever we can place this guy in his history.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and from there, it gets him to thinking maybe this is our guy. But yeah, Ranger Holland wasn't the only one throughout the country to think that. He was
Okay.
just the one that got him to talk, really. Um, he said that the best way to do that is to avoid remorse and avoid talking about family, theirs or the victims, and just let them tell their story.
Oh, so don't try and get him to feel bad about it, in other
Right,
words,
exactly. Which, of course, would
which is
totally square with what we know about.
would be pointless.
Yeah, totally an exercise in futility to do that. Let's see. See, he had Knox County, Tennessee. That was what was? Man, I didn't write it down. Oh, Martha Little, no relation to Sam, but Martha Little. Knox County, Tennessee was another probable. Her body was found in 1975. She was found in the woods, bruised and nude from the waist down, pantyhose and girdle around her knees. Her purse and jewelry were missing. There was, of course, the secondary dump site there with that. Still, I found this kind of weird. Investigators at that time said she died of natural causes.
What?
Yeah. The medical examiner listed it as, quote, unknown. But she was a gospel singer in a family band, too. The Happy Home Jubilee Singers.
So he wasn't just taking meth heads and crackheads and hookers.
No, I mean, she wouldn't fit that pattern. I'm wondering how he found her, though. She had to have been somewhere near where, you know, the women who do fit that usually are. But yeah, I still would like to know why they thought natural causes. It's essentially they were trying to make the argument that she died in one spot. Somebody just moved her there that didn't kill her.
And
But
undressed her.
yeah.
Because, yeah, right.
Yeah. And that's just nuts. I mean, I realize that in a lot of areas in this country, you don't even have to be a doctor to be a coroner, but this seems just
Well,
outrageous.
and from what I've read, the concept of a coroner is much different than a medical examiner.
Yes, medical examiner has to be a doctor
And a
in many
medical
areas.
examiner is charged with, you know, solving the cause of death. Coroner, not necessarily.
Yeah, a lot of the times what they can do is basically just back up the cops
Yeah.
with the coroners, but
But a
still,
medical
that seems
exam,
to be
yeah,
just stupid.
in a lot of states, a medical examiner is an investigator,
Hmm.
and they just use, medicine to investigate and science.
Yep, they definitely do. But many of the others that we're looking at with the 93 here were ruled overdoses too. It was about the time, the peak in his killing was about the time of the crack epidemic in the United States.
Ah,
See a lot of that, but a lot of heroin heads too with that. And you know what? I hate to say it, but you can't really blame him for jumping to that assumption of overdose when you look at the victimology of Little.
well, I mean,
If there's
you'd
evidence
think
of
there
it.
would be signs, but he liked to strangle, so come on.
Well,
That leaves distinctive trace evidence, right? There are things that happen in the body when you're strangled.
usually, but not always. I think about like 80% of the time or more, but not all the time.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it got chalked up to that for the most part with the others. But then, of course, you also have the many others who probably weren't even reported as missing. I mean, that's a very rare thing that you would get somebody reporting a sex worker missing.
Right.
It's another thing that
Which
would
is
change if they would legalize it.
I'll think not legalize, decriminalize.
Yeah, yeah, even
Because
decriminalizing.
absolutely true. The laws that people think are protecting women are actually putting them in danger because they can't, you know, the the friends and coworkers of these sex workers can't report their friends missing.
Hmm.
Uh,
Absolutely.
they don't feel safe doing that, and the cops don't fucking care anyway.
No,
And they're not. They honest to God, they're gonna say, well, she probably moved to another town.
probably.
and they won't
Just
put
up and
any effort
left.
into it. But but so there's so little done to help these women.
It's sad, man. It kind of reminds me of what happened with Robert Hansen too.
Yeah,
How he got away with it.
I mean,
But
people who claim to be, you know, one in favor of women's rights and women's protection should be championing sex workers and making them safe, and not by the prohibition, which clearly doesn't work
yep,
and never has anywhere.
nope. I
So,
couldn't agree more, man.
you know, let's come up with something that does work and makes these women, have some recourse.
And where they aren't afraid to go to the police if
Yeah,
they're beaten up or what have you. But
exactly.
a lot of these are still open as we were talking about, and in fact, the FBI is taking tips on a lot of these cases. If anybody has one, you can actually dial their number 1-800 call FBI, 1-800 CALL FBI, or tips.fbi.gov. So they're getting John Q. Public if they can, with a lot of them.
So, is they trying to get him to draw more pictures to help with identifying?
Yeah, my understanding, yeah, that process hasn't stopped. The Ranger Holland is trying to keep that going with him.
I mean,
And I sup-
if he's got that kind of recall, then that would be a huge thing.
it would. And my understanding, it was getting a little slower too because Little does have some health problems
Hmm.
related to diabetes and his heart, I think. But yeah, I mean, they're hoping they can get as much as possible out of him before anything happens. I mean, the guy is 79
Wow,
after all.
better get
So,
on that.
yep.
I wonder if they could use a sketch artist so he wouldn't have to do all the work.
I don't know, man. I think it kind of makes it more interesting that he's doing it like that.
Well, I know, but if he can't,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, then maybe get one.
yeah,
Yeah, it could. They are the FBI after all.
yeah, you'd think they'd have some resources they could tap into.
But oh yeah, another earlier one of his. This was around 71 or 72. Mary Ann or Marion met an attractive transgender woman age 18 to 19. Mary Ann or Marion, 5'6", 5'7", 140 pounds. I
Hmm.
first met her at the Pool Palace Bar, and we met again a few days later at a bar in Overton, where I was offered to drive her home, where she lived with several roommates. Let's see, they left again in Little's Gold. Yeah, I can't read my. That's weird. Can you hear me?
You did cut out for a second. You left in his gold, and now you're gone again.
How about
Well, seems like we've kind of lost Wes a little bit. He's cutting in and out.
can you hear me now?
There, yep.
I don't know why it's doing that. I heard like a little pop and then it did that. But yeah, they left in his Pontiac Le Mans, drove down the highway to a field where they strangled her. And Little says the body was never found.
Wow.
And there's just so many of those right now. I mean, it is great that they can solve those cold cases. I just hope that some of these don't turn out to be bullshit, like with Henry Lee Lucas, you know?
Right.
Little doesn't seem to be the type who's motivated to lie, though, with that.
No, he hasn't really sought publicity, has he?
No, kind of the opposite,
Yeah.
keeping it hidden for so long.
I mean, some guys, once you catch them, you can't shut them up.
This is true. And you have the ones who totally make shit up.
Yeah.
I mean, at least when you had somebody like
Berkowitz.
Ed Kemper who was talking. Yeah, Berkowitz, Lucas, when he said he killed 600.
Right. Then
Yeah,
you,
it'd be.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say it'd be interesting to see how all this unfolds as we get more info. Because, like I said, we're still, people across the country are still processing a lot of this and verifying and, doing everything that homicide investigators are supposed to do
Right.
to get it right.
The problem is that if some of these victims, they have if they completely cut off ties with family, and move to other areas and nobody knows where they went or what name they were going under or anything. All they know is they just disappeared. They don't know, they don't even know if they should be looking for them, right?
Oh, exactly. Part of that transient lifestyle
Yeah,
that's going into that side of the equation and it's going into his side. That's how he was successful for so long in what he did, was sort of finding a weak spot in that system and exploiting it and
right.
staying mobile, staying transient.
Yeah, there's a reason why this demographic is so frequently targeted by these
Mm-hmm.
men, and that's because, you know, much of the time nobody misses them when they're gone. Nobody even knows that they're gone.
Unfortunately,
They,
it gets me that so much of that could be solved by, like we said, just decriminalizing.
yeah,
Sad, really.
yeah, it is super sad, and you know, so many people have this uh, visceral reaction to sex workers, just the concept that,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't, I don't, honest to God, I don't think they even understand why. Um,
Yeah,
they don't think about it. They just have this reaction, and like we have to stop this.
I agree. Yeah, they seem to just knee jerk with it.
Yeah, without really understanding what's going on, and it's the oldest profession for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. And it'll continue to be.
It'll always be there. You can't make it go away. So why not, help those ladies?
Exactly. Well said.
Shit, penguins. Penguins will prostitute themselves for pretty rocks.
It's kind of funny. There was a story from last week about that, about penguins prostituting themselves for sushi. Kept breaking
Oh,
into it.
yeah, going into the sushi store next door. That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
It finally got booted out, but yeah. I was curious, and I think I'm going to put this in the letter that we write to Ridgway. What do you think of Samuel Little, if you've heard about him?
Oh, yeah.
Being as I think Little has Ridgway has the most confirmed kills out of any American serial killer.
Yeah.
But now Little's taken his mantle.
And they did kind of shop in the same aisles of the grocery store, so to speak.
They did. Both targeted prostitutes. Yep, we'll see what he says about that when we send that letter.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yep.
Hope he writes back.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, he's another one of these who's really he comes across as a very shy person to begin with, an introvert
Hmm.
type, and so he he didn't want the big trial. He wasn't Bundy. He wasn't charismatic and gregarious. He didn't want a trial, so he traded his life for confession,
Hmm.
and he pled.
Wasn't a big part of that to spare his family, too? Or at least he said it was.
Well, yeah, he said that, but
Yeah.
maybe it was. Um, it's hard to say, how much how much care did he really have about for his family after all? Because
Very true.
don't forget, this is the guy who took his nephew on a camping trip to Oregon with a dead hooker in the back of the pickup.
This is true. Man. But yeah, I would be curious to see if he does say something back.
Yeah,
Jeez. I, it's unfathomable, too, that this record will ever be beaten.
well, let's hope not.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope not, but kind of a natural digression to wonder about.
Well, and one of the things that you hear people remark about casually, or at least I do, is they want to know what is there anything that can be done to stop these people from developing into serial killers? And honest to God, I don't think there is.
Nope. There's just too many variables that would have to be controlled. I mean, granted, you can do things to limit the largest of those variables, like child abuse, that sort of thing, but even taking that out of the equation doesn't guarantee anything.
No. So there's still going to be if you take so there's the nature part of it, which is the sociopaths for the
Right.
by and large, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, some are psychotic, but mostly they're sociopaths, psychopaths,
Yep.
and uh, that's never going to change. It's not an illness. It is as near as they can tell, it's a diminished. Um, they just have fewer neurons in the hippocampus
Mm-hmm.
than normal people. The brain in that area is underdeveloped. And you
Mm-hmm.
can't fix that.
No. No, I mean you can't.
Now, then there's the nurture part of it. Obviously, not all sociopaths turn into even criminals, much less murderers, even much
Mm-hmm.
less serial killers.
Right. Oh, most definitely. That's where you get the ones who find a socially acceptable outlet
Right.
for the sociopathy, like a CEOs, that sort of
CEOs,
thing. Police.
police, military, prison guards.
Yep.
There are a lot of ways, and some people just don't do it in their professions, or they find outlets in their hobbies. Maybe they're thrill seekers or something.
Yep. And then it just becomes something bigger.
And so the difference between a sociopath who becomes a senator and one who becomes a serial killer uh, could be largely up to how they grew up.
Oh, absolutely. But we do know that for that one to become a serial killer, somewhere along the line, the psychopathy got fused
Yeah,
with violence, which got fused with sexuality.
right.
That's really the big difference here. These serial killers, these lust killers like Samuel Little, it is all about sexual psychopathy with these
Yes,
people.
right. They and part of it is that they start experimenting when they're little and seeing what they can get away with and seeing what they like,
Hmm.
and and they don't get discovered because they're very clever a lot
Yep.
of times.
Yep.
Oh, unless you're like a 9-year-old kid who burns his whole family to the ground
Yeah.
and and
I need to
watches.
read a bit more on that. Nine
My
years old, man.
Yeah, my understanding is that he just stood there and watched.
Wow.
If I
Yeah, that's like something out of the
That's
horror
a
flicks.
Stephen King level shit, man.
It is, man. Oh yeah, did you see that other story the other day about the couple who adopted I think it was a
Ah,
Ukrainian kid, and they
yeah,
said it was actually a midget that tried to kill them?
yeah. It was an adult woman who was pretending to be a child.
Wow. I mean, that's right out of the storyline for Orphan,
Yeah.
the movie. I actually interviewed the woman who played in that.
Did you?
I did. And my God, I feel bad I can't remember her name right now. I'll probably just look it up while we're talking. But
Well,
yeah,
Samuel Little, I think we're gonna be coming back to talk about him again,
yeah, there is so much info, and like I said
and it's still
earlier, there's so much
developing.
it's not. Yeah, exactly. It's still developing. It's not yet verified, but yeah, it's definitely looking like it's going to be 93.
Wow. Well, I think we're gonna call this good for tonight. What do you say?
That sounds great.
Okay. Samuel Little, perhaps.
Isabel Furman, that was her name.
Okay.
Yep.
Perhaps the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history.
Yep.
But
Scary,
we'll
man.
f- but we'll find out.
We shall.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.